Salutations, Utopians. What a day, what a day. We've seen some legacy coaches step down. Seattle Seahawks Pete Carroll, who also dominated on the collegiate level. And then, speaking of the collegiate level, Nick Saban of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He's considered the diamond standard and godfather of coaching at this point. Has decided to retire. One of the most decorated resumes we've ever seen. But this video is about Jim Harbaugh. I wanted to let the national champion breathe a little bit before we go talking about future destinations. First and foremost, congratulations on their national title. Hadn't been done since 1997. Very impressed with Mr. Harbaugh. He is the best in the business and the hottest name right now on the professional NFL level. By the sounds of everything, according to a lot of these legacy media sports news outlets, it sounds like he's coached his last days on the collegiate level. He did what he sought out to do when he was first hired in the Michigan job. There's some teams desperate in dire need of a coach of his stature, and he still has that bitter taste in his mouth, I'm sure, of what happened in San Francisco. Despite having, I think it was 2 Super Bowl appearances, he's got some unfinished business. And as much as he loves the money that I'm sure Michigan's going to pay him, which I've heard numbers north of 120 million, I think he definitely has his own bucket list in life, and this is one of them. And I definitely think it's realistic that he can get one. With that being said, the first one on the list, and no denying it, is the LA Chargers. Like I said earlier, due to the fact that of how things ended in San Francisco, I know he's a California guy, coached at Stanford. He loves California, so it's highly likely. Secondly, they have a well-equipped roster. They are very close to the salary cap and going over it, so definitely somebody's going to be waived. But Bosa, Khalil Mack on the defensive end. Then you got Ekeler. You got Keenan Allen, who's one of the greatest in the league right now in the last 5 years. Up there with the Devontae Adams and everyone else, just doesn't get the media hype. He's not a very me type of guy in front of the camera. And then obviously Justin Herbert, who's in that elite category, top 7 with the Allens, the Jacksons, the Mahomes. And so you can't go wrong over there. With that being said, they're definitely going to have to make some cuts. Harbaugh, 60 years of age. I don't know if he really has much of a rebuild in him. And so them having to let go some people, still have to make room for the draft picks, it might be a little bit too muddy for him. But they are definitely, to me, the number 1 team. Interesting news today. The Chicago Bears gave a vote of confidence to Matt Eberflus. This was a team I thought had a strong up chance due to the fact that Harbaugh used to play there. They have some nice weapons in place. Field showed promise. He's top 10 now, and he just crossed 10th all time in passing yards in Chicago Bears history. You have DJ Moore in place. They have some. They showed a lot of positivity near the end. They had a couple games slip away. I thought they would have been a viable candidate, but Ryan Poles decided to give Eberflus another year. Maybe they're going to give Justin Fields another year, because I just can't imagine them passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. When you're drafting that high. And an interesting quote was said out of Chicago today, where he basically said, if it's not obviously blatantly obvious, the quarterback prospect, he's not going number 1 with it. And I don't know if anybody's just obviously the number 1. Don't get me wrong, I think Caleb Williams is a very great prospect, but just because a player is a great prospect, if he's going to be, let's say, a Byron Leftwich in the league, which Byron Leftwich had a respectable career and even a better coaching career, and is having even a better coaching career, it's not enough to justify the first overall pick when you have a Marvin Harrison on the board. And I think that's what Ryan Poles is looking at it like. But they're not even an option, so might as well move off that. Here's my dark horse team, and I don't hear many people talking about this. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie Roseman, if there's one thing we know about him, he sees, he goes, he hunts. Whether the Eagles are historically known, they will get whoever they set their eyes on, and they take no for an answer. Asamoah, the defensive back, over the year, you could name a laundry list of players who were considered the top prospect in free agency, and they go nab him. A.J. Brown acquired him with no problem. DeAndre Swift swooped one in because they wanted to keep up the theme of Georgia Bulldogs. But what you have right now in Philadelphia is a bigger problem. You got a quarterback who's the highest paid quarterback annually in the NFL. And since week 2, he's had extreme friction with a prize acquisition in A.J. Brown, who, mind you, the Tennessee Titans never recovered from trading away. That week 2 blow up against Minnesota, 10 weeks later they go out and acquire Julio Jones to try to mentor him and bring him back down. He had got out of control. Dude is mad about his numbers, and this is what happens when you peak too early in a season. Guys get to nitpicking. It's very rare you find guys who are down for the cause, the way, like, for instance, Scottie Pippen did for the Bulls, or just guys who are willing to compromise their statistics for the greater good. And that's exactly what you need in order to continue a dynasty, or to even get your first chip for that matter. And right now, the problem is they may have equipped their offense a little bit too much. Because what I'm trying to say by that is Jalen Hurts reminds me of like a Doug Flutie. He's like Baker Mayfield. He's like Vince Young. It's not pretty. He just gets the W. But when you have him having to worry about fantasy stats, I got to get the ball to this guy. I got to get him his 100 yards and his 100 yards. Now it's not about the game anymore. You're worrying about feelings. It's a gladiator sport. You can't be worried about emotional ties and friendships and all that. And originally, the premise of the trade was they're best friends. He needs a WR1. Devontae Smith is relatively young, though they invested serious capital, making him, I think he was a top 10 pick out of Alabama. And hence why they went and got Julio, because that's someone who AJ deeply respects, and also someone who went to their prized draft pick alma mater. Furthermore, AJ needed some, because AJ lost control. He's literally calling out a great in Donovan McNabb, who was practically LeBron James, the freaking NFC for 3-4 years. Him and Andy Reid were just consistently NFC championship year in and year out, and finally broke through when they got T.O. And that's who A.J. Brown's supposed to be, and he's turning into what T.O. was. Phenomenal production, but now starting to be a little bit too much of a off the field distraction, because players can't stand when fans are worried about stats. Well, imagine how a player feel. And this was the demise of what happened to Baker, and everyone's all shocked, who's now to me the most improved player of the year, comeback player of the year, because he was so worried about trying to get Odell his stats that it compromised his end game. And the same thing is happening to Jalen. Jalen just needs to be able to play the game, win at all costs. It doesn't have to be pretty. And right now, he's too worried about getting everyone, their numbers. It's not just about the win, and they peak so early. Now they're left scrambling, and if they lose in an ugly way, knowing how ultra aggressive Howie Roseman has been, a brilliant mind like Jim Harbaugh is the kind of piece you need to get over the hump. And as I alluded to earlier, dude's 60 years old. He ain't got time to be sitting up here trying to build a team from scratch and being all stressed out. He could be running up multiple chips with the Wolverines if that's the case. So that's the difference, I feel like, between the Eagles and maybe the Chargers, who might need a year or two after they sort through their salary cap. Even though I know the NFL is a star is born every week, I just think there might be a little bit of a reset button with Jalen Hurts. You're already on the ground running. You got the weapons in store. Certain guys are under contract. They can't afford to lose ugly. The same can be said about the Dallas Cowboys. If they lose the wrong way, Dak wants a contract extension in 2 years. Dan Quinn is a hot name, their defensive coordinator. But if you're going to have to pay another round of $250 million on a quarterback, you need to get you a quarterback whisperer. Harbaugh is that. So the last one on my list, is the Washington Commanders. Obviously, new ownership. They did a lot to relieve their salary cap situation by letting go 2 premier pass rushers in Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and it paid dividends immediately for both franchises that acquired those 2 individuals. And it definitely was a testament to what's going on in the Commanders' locker room. And it's interesting enough, this team has a lot of weapons. And by mid-November, statistically, this team was 4th in total offense, 2nd in passing yards, and first and third down conversions. Now, obviously, the season didn't end that way, but it gives you a preview of the potential of this offense, especially with the weapons they have. Gibson, Robinson at running back, the two-headed monster. Logan Thomas is an immediate 5 to 10 catch a game type of guy. Immediately has picked up where Jake Reed left off, who was just a fantasy monster. And then you have McLaughlin, you got Curtis, you got Dotson. So they've got the skill position. They do need an offensive line, but they got the most salary cap going into this offseason. And they got an eager ownership group that is definitely doing everything they can, even when as far as hiring Bob Myers. Obviously, he's a hire for psychological reasons. He obviously has no NFL experience, but he knows how to read people, I guess. And so they feel it doesn't hurt to bring in a guy who understands the mindset and the atmosphere necessary and culture that needs to be created in order to create a dynasty. And that's why Harbaugh is a very dangerous candidate to end up in Washington. And who knows who else they try to bring in. Nick Saban's become available. They might really try to build a juggernaut over there in Washington. And it's not from a shortage of resources. So that's another situation to be out on the lookout for. They don't have, I don't know, the jury's still out with Sam Howell. If Harbaugh does get hired, I think he's going to want his own staff. That situation might be a little uncomfortable for him. I don't know if he really wants to go in there and have to, because I feel like Eric Bieniemy did his job, and I definitely think he'll likely get the Falcons job, but it's going to be very uncomfortable if they have to move some furniture around. With that being said, Utopians, I'm glad I waited. I didn't want to I know timing is everything with these videos, but it just didn't feel right if I went ahead and released a video the night of the Michigan Wolverines winning the championship, nor would it feel okay, the day after. So forgive me if the timing of the video might seem a little outdated, but I just wanted to make sure I respected this great accomplishment that Harbaugh accomplished with Michigan, why they brought him in. He did what he was supposed to do. He honored his contract. So much could be said about the criticism and the crucifixion of, whatever the Spygate thing they try to do. And for the record, I'd never seen the level of vitriol, the hate that he got when the Patriots did it, but when it's him, it's something else. With that being said, he's definitely in line to do it again, and I think, mark my words, he's going to win a championship in the NFL before it's all said and done. All right, Utopians, all the best, love and light. Cheers.